Hi, my name is Oscar Pearce. I'm 24 years old and I'm a professional GeoGuessr player and YouTuber. I've been on YouTube now for 3.5 years, and I'm here today to chat a little bit about the journey of, being on YouTube, uploading basically every day for a long time now, and the kind of lessons I've learned while doing that, and also what exactly it means to play GeoGuessr professionally, because it's a game that a lot of people don't know that much about. And yeah, we get into a lot of different stuff, like different languages and cultures around the world, and the different kind of things you need to learn if you want to be good at this game. So I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Oscar. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Getting over a sickness, but apart from that, chilling.
Yeah, you don't sound it, which is good. That's what we want.
Yeah.
We care about your voice, and you sound
Nice.
fine. So
Great.
Maybe we could start off by you introducing yourself and kind of what you do and your story of how you got up to where we are now.
Yep, my name is Oscar. I just turned 24 years old. I live here in Adelaide. Have done so for the last 13 or so years. How far back should I go? From the start of my channel? From the start of my life?
I think let's go. We've done life so far for everyone.
Okay,
So
okay.
let's go live.
Sure. So I was born in Melbourne. I lived there until I was 4. Dad is a pastor of religion, so he's moving depending on where he's needed, and so I was in Melbourne first, then in Bendigo, which is in central Victoria, and then in Adelaide at the same church for the last 13 years. And he's still there as well.
Can I ask what church?
It's Bethlehem Lutheran Church,
Cool.
which is in the city centre. And yeah, so I guess as per relating to my channel, which is a geography channel related to the game GeoGuessr, I was always interested in the world. We had a world map at home. I would always like to look at it. We had a big atlas. I would be poring over it. Not in a completely obsessed way. I had other obsessions which were greater. For example, I loved cars when I was little to death. And then also, I don't know, I loved, video games and such when I was younger as well. I was pretty obsessed with them. But I always liked geography. I always knew my flags. I always knew countries and that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess I was first introduced to GeoGuessr when I was at high school. I can't remember if it was year 8 or year 9, but it was just after GeoGuessr came out, around 2014, 2015. I think the game came out a year or two before. And yeah, we in geography class, our teacher showed it to us and we played a little bit. Yeah. So it's kind of funny to think that it all started in high school in a way. I guess it is kind of funny. But really, I didn't get into the game much. I knew of the game, and then I guess later on, it happened that I rediscovered it on YouTube. And from there, I really picked it up and started to play.
All right, so we talked up to high school at that point. And I'm guessing it was a hobby at that point?
Yeah, so I guess back when I discovered it in high school, I only played it in the class. And it was good fun. I don't think I was any good at it. Maybe better in the sense that I knew where the countries were, but that was about it. But had good fun playing it. And then I just was kind of always aware of the game from then on. So maybe I would have watched a few videos here and there. It's very hard to remember back now that I've played thousands of hours of the game.
Right.
Remembering back to the time when you knew nothing about something like that is it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, of course.
But but when I rediscovered it on YouTube, that would have been around 2019, 2018.
Yeah. And what were you doing at that point?
Well, at that point I was studying, and I was also playing other games and not really. I'd only played GeoGuessr with a passing interest between then and between that point in high school.
Yeah.
So, it was not really a part of my life. But when I discovered this YouTuber called GeoWizard, who is still, I guess, the most subscribed GeoGuessr YouTuber, and I actually had the privilege of making a video with him not that long ago, which was fantastic. But he, I watched his gameplay. I was like, wow, this is something else. How is he able to know it's Eswatini, a tiny country in Southern Africa, based on nothing? He wasn't even moving around. He was just able to recognize the country. I thought that was ridiculous. So at that point I was like, okay, this is a game I actually may want to try out. And so I actually got a subscription for my ex-girlfriend at the time for her birthday, but I ended up weaseling my way onto the account. And from there, I played a lot. I just instantly
Wait, so
started
you
playing
never,
a lot.
all the way up to that point,
Yeah.
you never had a subscription for yourself?
Well, the thing is, actually, back in the day, it used to be a free game, and then Google raised the API cost to use Google Maps inside websites, and so GeoGuessr, the website, had to start charging.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And so outside of high school, you just finished high school here. I remember you saying that you went to uni as well.
Yeah.
What did you go to uni for then?
So I actually went to uni here at University of Adelaide. I studied history and philosophy.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in high school, I dropped geography as soon as I could for history. It was always my favorite of the two, and probably still is in a way. You know, like I definitely have a passion for history. My interest in geography is more narrow than my interest in history, I can say. History, I'm interested in everything.
Yeah.
Geography, I'm interested in social geography, not so much like rock formations. Or something like
of
that,
course.
You know?
And has that interest in history played out? Like, has that been beneficial at all?
Oh, definitely, because like, for example, in Europe, you have all kinds of different architecture, and a lot of the times the architecture is along country lines, so you might get many more red houses in Sweden than in Denmark, for example. But sometimes in Europe, the borders transcend modern borders and are actually much more accurate to old countries that used to exist. For example, Austro-Hungary used to be a huge country in Eastern Europe, combining like 6 or 7 countries now, and you get Austro-Hungarian architecture. For example, you get a particular style of houses in the north of Serbia, which you just don't see in the south because it used to be part of Austro-Hungary. So it's that kind of stuff that, like history, it doesn't play a big role, but definitely my interest in it still, is
maybe you have an edge.
Yeah. At least as a newer player, I did. I think now it doesn't really play so much a role now that I spend so long playing. But
That's interesting. I want to get into what you're doing now, but before that, I want to know, like, obviously, as you get experience in doing anything. There's like a level of progression. Did you find that it was like kind of linear, like you constantly just kept getting better, or was there anything that like all of a sudden you found out the secret? And you kind of infinitely improved?
I would say that's a really great question. I think it is a game that is deliciously linear to learn. Where like
deliciously linear.
Yeah, because I used to play other games and I would sink in hundreds and hundreds of hours and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere because like, I don't know, like it would all be about, how fast your reflexes were on the day, or I used to play shooting games a lot and it would just feel like it would be so dependent on, how much sleep you got, how switched on you were at that exact moment, how much you were in practice. Whereas GeoGuessr, you barely lose anything that you gain. Like, for example, today I learned Thai provinces. I was going through learning the 77 provinces of Thailand. And it's like, that will always be useful. For the rest of the time I play in the rest of my life, that will be a useful thing I know about Thailand. And sure, it might slip, but it's always easier to relearn. And you do forget things. It's primarily a memory game, but you're always building. Which I love.
So was there anything? So you said it was very linear at all. But I'm sure that you kind of learnt like a secret, or is there anything like that? Like you?
I actually don't think so. Like it's.
I'm asking. Like, is there? Because for the uneducated person that looks at this, it looks like magic. And I'm sure at some point, for you, it also looked like magic. And even when you started playing, it was like, how? And then, what did you discover that kind of went, I get it?
Well, I guess you're right. When I first watched it, I was like, what? How is he getting S Martini? This kind of stuff. The same thing that people probably feel when they watch my videos now. But it is that thing where these kind of clips of people getting the right country when it seems really difficult, or guessing in 0.1 seconds, the more you play, the more you understand how it's achievable. There's really no moment where it kind of clicks for you, because GeoGuessr is about a slow and steady and huge acquisition of knowledge about different countries. For example, well, I think I could answer it like this. The first country I learned to get really good at was Australia. And by the time And I was at one point probably the best player at the Australia map in the world. Wow. At the moment, not even close, but yeah. I've focused on the world map a lot more. So, but back in that time, I guess, I was one of the best players in the world at Australia, but I sucked at the world map. But understanding being really, really good at Australia allowed me to understand how to get good at other countries. It's like, okay, it's a combination of, learning this soil color, learning the landscape here, learning to look out for what kind of lamp attachment they're using on a pole, this kind of stuff that you would never pay attention to. But once you learn how to pay attention, you gain another perspective and you're much better at learning the next country that you come across. And so now when I learn a new country, I sat down to learn Mongolia yesterday, and I found myself learning it super quickly.
Yeah, wow, right.
It was just like, it just felt very natural.
Yeah.
Where that was certainly not the case when I started out learning.
Yeah. You said that you used to be one of the best in Australia, but then now you're not even close. But I don't understand how that would work because Australia hasn't changed. So are you saying that you forgot or other people got better? Like how?
Yeah, so two things on that. Number one, other people got better, 100%. Yeah. I mean, at that stage, GeoGuessr is like a game where everyone's constantly getting better because new stuff's being discovered and everyone's kind of coming together, sharing their knowledge with one another. But also, the huge thing is that in certain countries, they're constantly driving the Google cars. And it really does matter when and under what conditions they drove the Google cars. For example, what's a good example of that? So, for example, when they originally drove New South Wales in 2008, there was a lot of smudges on the lens, and it was really useful for certain areas. You would just always have a smudge on the lens because a fly died on one of the 8 cameras that's like makes up the panoramic images that Google takes. But it's like, okay, well, in 2023 they recovered the entirety of that area where you would have the smudge. And it's like, okay, that knowledge that I used to have that made me a level above the others just no longer exists because they've overwritten it. Wow. So it's stuff like that as well. And it makes learning certain countries much less high yield than others. For example, Russia, now that the whole political situation with the invasion of Ukraine has happened, you don't actually get any new coverage. So it's extremely high yield to learn Russia because it's not going to change. So if they did have a fly die and create a smudge on the camera, that's not going to change. It's going to stay there for the next years, presumably.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So if you've had a really long experience. You said you started like properly getting back into it 2019 onwards. And I'm guessing it's just been onwards and onwards, doubling down. What's something you wish you kind of, with all of this experience now, told yourself back in 2019 to like learn and don't skip on it and get on it straight away that you could probably give some advice to people that are just starting out now?
Yeah, I'd love to give myself that advice in 6 months' time because I feel like I'm kind of going through a big learning experience at the moment. I think for people who don't understand at home, GeoGuessr is comprised of 3 main game modes. There's moving, where you like kind of run down the street and look for signs and that kind of stuff. There's no moving, where you can pan around, but you're free to zoom and look around. You just can't move down the road. But you're at a single point. And then NMPZ, no moving, panning, or zooming, which is just a still image.
Yeah.
And for the last 2 years, my favorite has just been NMPZ. I love playing the still image stuff.
Yeah.
But I do wish I'd been more open to learning moving early because it really does benefit your gameplay as a NMPZ player to have that background in all 3 game modes.
Right.
That being said, my passion still lies in NMPZ. But yeah, I wish I was a little bit less proud when it came to that. Would have been more willing to learn that, and therefore, it does improve all aspects of your game. But that's a bit technical, perhaps. I guess also I just wish I dedicated myself a little bit more early because then I could be even better today as well.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm guessing very early on you picked NMPZ and just started going.
Well, I think initially I just loved no moving, but NMPZ kind of is kind of like an offshoot of no moving, where you probably want to get good at no moving first because NMPZ is just kind of really difficult.
Yeah.
So I feel like most people start off on NM and then they either stay with it, which is most people, or some people like myself progress on to loving the still image kind of battle.
Yeah, interesting. Is there anything else you can tell us about the GeoGuessr game to someone that has no idea what it is exactly?
That's definitely worth going through. So GeoGuessr, essentially, if you're not familiar, you're drop down and you have a 360-degree view of whatever's going on around you. And inside the game, you have a map on the bottom right of the screen, and once you've kind of figured out where you want to make your guess, you put down a pin on the map and press guess. And in your guess, you're assigned a certain amount of points, or you get a certain amount of points based on how close you were. So if I was, the maximum points is 5,000. So if I was 50 meters away, then I get 5,000 points. But if I was 500 kilometers away, then it'd be more like 4,000 points. And if I was 5,000 kilometers away, then it's going to be like less than 500 points. So it's all about, like trying to get as close as you possibly can, and oftentimes with limited information. Sometimes you're just on a dirt road. Other times you're in the middle of Adelaide and you can see everything you want to see. It depends.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. And what about time? Is it like the faster you click, you get more points as well?
Yeah, so it's not the faster you click, the more points you get, but there are certain modes which are time limited. I really like stuff that takes place in less than a minute, typically.
Yeah, interesting.
But you will have those ones where people are just trying to find the exact spot, and there's unlimited time.
Oh wow! Okay. I see. What's the closest you've been? Have you got? I'm sure you've gotten exact
0 meters. Yeah.
You have? Wow.
Yeah,
really?
Even as someone who's not really good at that pinpointing aspect where you get the exact spot, I tend to like to just go for the right town or go for the right country. But even as a player like that, I got a perfect score today. Yeah.
Oh wow.
A couple of meters away today. Yeah.
That's very impressive.
That happens often.
Yeah, right.
Because if you have the right signs, you will just find where you are.
Yeah. Okay.
If I have a sign for, if I'm on a major highway.
Yeah.
I think as GeoGuessr players, it's easy to forget how much for granted people take just different aspects. So a divided road, one where you have 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes on the other with guardrails in between. It's very apparent on the map. But to a new player, you might not really realize that. But if you zoom in on Google Maps, you can see, okay, this one's divided. You can see the arrows pointing this way and this way. So it's like if I'm on a divided highway and I'm headed through the hills, there's not many of those actually.
Yeah, right.
Like if I'm talking to an Adelaide audience here, but if you're going through the hills, there's only a few options for divided highways. So you'd immediately be like, okay, well, I've got assigned to this place.
Yes.
I'm on the divided highway.
Yes.
So let me just find the where you would exit to that place on the divided highway, and it really, like, once you understand generally how getting the exact place works, it's a lot easier than you'd think.
That's so interesting. Yeah. It's amazing that you have such detailed knowledge of this in so many different countries in the world.
Yeah.
What country do you think you would say you are the best at, like you're most confident with at the moment?
That's a good question. So Australia has always been my bread and butter, even though on the world stage, people have definitely caught up and surpassed me on Australia. It's still probably, compared to other pros, a very strong country for me. I would say other countries I specialize in would be Brazil, South Africa, Botswana. This is a kind of an interesting pick, but I really like that country.
Did you study these countries?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Significant study. Yeah. I was in call for a guy last night for 2 hours. He was just talking about different roads in Brazil to me.
Wow.
Just kind of explaining, okay, this one, you've got concrete road. It's not bitumen, it's concrete instead. And this one, okay, you see this kind of palm tree, and you have a ridge to the south, so it's like this kind of stuff. Like, it's very in-depth if you want it to be.
Have you ever traveled to a country to learn?
Not to learn, but Slovenia was a country I visited a lot in GeoGuessr, and I was like, wow, this place is so beautiful, I have to go there.
Oh, wow.
And it's my favorite country I've ever visited. So.
That's amazing. Have you got to travel a lot for GeoGuessr at all?
So I ended up going to tournaments a lot in Stockholm, but for GeoGuessr, that's been the main travel I've done, which, it's a big blessing, but...
is that where GeoGuessr was
started? They're headquartered there. I'm friends with all the developers now, which is quite fun.
Wow.
I don't know. Like, it's normally just within Stockholm.
Yeah,
these tournaments take place because that's where they run it from.
Yeah. How many GeoGuessr YouTubers are there, like, on the high end? Like, where do you rank?
I guess, out of people who do pretty much dedicated GeoGuessr, I'd be the third biggest channel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In the world?
Yeah, but the other two who are bigger than me are significantly bigger.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of hard to say. In English language, definitely third.
Yeah.
But there are other contenders.
Right.
There's a guy who does a Polish channel. I'm friends with him. He's significantly bigger than me as well. But he also transitioned from other games into GeoGuessr, whereas mine's been GeoGuessr right from the start.
From an audience point of view, I guess it's a lot easier, but from a game point of view, there's so many little specialties and things. I'm sure there's like...
Yeah.
So your niche would be like global map.
Yes. I mean, actually, for the most part, all GeoGuessr YouTubers do play the world map because that is the most fun to watch.
Yeah.
That being said, YouTubers from Japan who do GeoGuessr often focus a lot on the Japan map because Japanese audiences want to watch Japan.
That's true. Yeah.
Same thing happens in like Finland and
I guess the
some countries just particularly like watching people guess their own country. But, you know, like for the most part,
I guess there's a balance between doing what you like and doing what your audience likes. Cause
for certain.
Interesting. So, okay, so I think we got a lot of information about the game itself. Now back to you. Yeah. So, what was maybe the peak, or do you think you are still like training and trying to get better and better and better? Like, what's the greatest thing you've achieved so far through the game? And
so that's a great question. So I think whatever my peak will be and whatever my greatest achievement will be is definitely in the future, 100%. Because I've won tournaments. I have won a number of tournaments, normally team tournaments. I've not won anything solo. That being said, most GeoGuessr tournaments do happen in teams. It's the World Cup that's the solo
How does a team tournament work?
So in GeoGuessr, obviously, your points are determined by how close you are. And in team format, it just takes... You could like be 3 versus 3, for example. Whoever's the closest on your team versus whoever's the closest on their team just takes the best score that each of your teams got.
Yeah.
And if I'm on this team and we got 4,000 points and the other team got 3,000, then it would take away 1,000 health from them. The difference between the distances.
Oh, right. Okay. And so going from 2019 until now, what's been kind of the key moments for you in your career? Essentially, this is your career, right?
So I guess my first tournament win, which I mean, is marred, I guess, by some people thinking one of my teammates is possibly cheating in that tournament, which may well have been the case. But that first tournament win, at least at the time, was like a huge deal for me. Absolutely, like elated to have gotten that. And then I guess like my participation at the World Cup, even though I wasn't able to go all the way to the playoff stage, I did achieve my goal of coming in the top half, and I think actually I played to the level I hoped to, so that was like a pretty big achievement in itself, I think.
How many participants were there in that?
That was a 24-player tournament, and I came in like the 8th to 12th.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Kind of, and I played against Turkey in the match to decide whether I'd get top 8, and it came down to one round, which I just didn't know, in New Zealand. And I'm about to focus a bit on New Zealand because it's quite a weak country for me, all in all. So you'd think it like is so similar to Australia in some ways, but no. Gotta work on that. But that's another big achievement. I guess just like, apart from that, it's just like, there's not been that crowning achievement yet. I want to win the Asia Cup. That comes up in 2 weeks.
Oh, so I'm guessing you're training hard now?
Yes, extremely hard,
What does that look like, training for you?
Today I woke up straight into learning Thai provinces. Then I moved over, practiced some world map, practiced some moving around games.
So, give me like a time number. How many hours do you actually spend training like a week? Like, is it like a full-time job, 40 hours a week, or? I can't even imagine doing this for like hours a day. Just
it really depends. At the moment, it's much more than normal for sure.
Yeah,
I think also to be fair, like it is kind of hard to distinguish what's YouTube and what's training. Sometimes they're quite similar in a way. I would say that per day at the moment, it's at least 6 hours of training.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Probably. Today will probably be more, but
yeah. Do you do that by yourself? Because I would imagine training like with someone else would be a bit more fun at least?
Yeah, so I would say it's about half and half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have like regular people that you do it with, or
Yes.
like friends?
Yeah, particular guys who are better than me at some aspects. And if I'm training a country, I like to sit down with the best player at that country.
Yeah.
So I recently trained Peru, and I sat down with the guy who's
How do
best
you
at Peru.
you just reach out and?
Yeah, well, he's a
People
great friend of
usually-
mine. So.
Oh yeah, there you go. And so I'm guessing you have a bunch of friends from like all over the world.
So
then.
many, yeah. And when I go to visit a place,
Yeah.
I probably have friends there.
That's amazing.
So I'm going to Vancouver soon, meeting up with a bunch of GeoGuessr friends there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So you mentioned you obviously learning the Thai provinces.
Yeah.
So in my head, I don't know. Could you run with me an idea of when you are playing and you get a scene? What is the thought process that you go to through in actually trying to figure out what it is?
Highly depends whether it's rural or urban. But let's take, for example, a rural road where I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So first thing I'll check is the driving direction. Are we going on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the road?
Yeah.
Because obviously if it's driving on the left-hand side of the road, that excludes it mostly to ex-British colonies plus a few Asian countries. That's basically it. So for example, Japan drives on the left for some reason, but basically everywhere in Europe, everywhere in South America, they all drive right-hand side. Then I will look at the soil color. Particular countries have a lot more red soil. When I was younger, I thought Australia's the only country with red soil.
Right.
It's very far from the truth. There are many, many countries. Brazil is actually the land of the red soil. Everywhere in Brazil has red soil.
Is that clay? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it is
think so,
clay
yeah.
kind of soil, yeah. Cambodia has a whole lot of red soil.
Wow.
But then you might get Iceland with black soil. It's volcanic.
All of
thing in
Iceland has
Hawaii.
black soil?
Yeah.
What?
So it's things like that which can be like extremely useful and just like they're not hard and fast rules. They're very much dynamic. One field can have red soil, the next one can't. But it's one factor. Then I'm looking at the trees. Is it more tropical? Is it more temperate? Is it more Arctic? Can be anything. Then there's also like kind of the Google aspects where I'm looking at the Google car. I'm looking at the copyright date of when it was covered.
When you say looking at the Google car, you can see the Google car?
You can't. It's mostly blurred, but a lot of times they leave a little trace. For example, an antenna or a rearview mirror can be visible. And it's like, okay, well, this rearview mirror is found mostly in these 3 countries.
Okay.
Stuff like that can be...
Yeah. So when you're playing, what was the mode you mentioned with just the frame?
Yeah, just a still frame. That one's the one that's least dependent on anything Google left over.
Because you couldn't actually...
Yeah, exactly. You can't look around and find the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. So you saw road, soil, features inside.
Yeah. So I mean, there's more we can talk about there. The elevation is extremely relevant. If it's dead flat, you're immediately thinking like Netherlands or Denmark or some country that doesn't have any mountains. But if you're inside the mountains, then maybe Bhutan. There's no flat places in Bhutan. There's no flat places in Lesotho. It's all elevated.
Do you know all the countries?
I think I know every country in the world, but
do you think you've guessed it? Like you've had a round in every country in the world?
Yeah, maybe not actually, because one thing what bears mentioning is that GeoGuessr is built on Google Street View, and Google Street View is only in about 110 countries.
Out of
195, depending on how you want to count.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not even like there's a solid amount that's
there's a solid amount that's missing. Most of the big countries in the world, apart from China, are there. But
do you know why the reasons they're missing?
So mostly it's either political reasons or because they're hard to get to. So for example, a lot of the Caribbean countries you could easily do, but getting the Google car there is kind of difficult. Right. Whereas a lot of Africa and Asia, they just have political climates that aren't suited to sending Google cars there. It just wouldn't really work. But yeah, so to answer your question, every country in GeoGuessr that actually has Google Street View, I've had 100 times.
Yeah, right.
But these other rarer countries, which only show up if you play unofficial coverage maps, that are user uploaded maps, then I suppose it's possible that I haven't had every country yet, but probably most.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. I have a very weird niche question I just thought of. How do you tell the difference between Vatican City and Italy and like Rome?
So, I mean, Vatican City, of course, the smallest country in the world, as you would know, It actually doesn't have any Google Street View.
Oh, really?
There are no roads in the Vatican, so if they did, they would have to send the backpack coverage there.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, by the way. I don't think there are any roads. It's just mainly the basilica. I mean, I know what that looks like. So if I was in there, it's just a matter of actually knowing the architecture and knowing and figuring out that, okay, this is going to be,
Yes, so that's not a country that's in.
It's not. I mean, I've definitely had rounds there, user uploaded rounds.
Yeah.
But
wait, so you said user uploaded rounds?
Yeah,
so that adds a bunch of countries as well that way.
It does, but official tournaments like the ones I play in Sweden only include Google stuff.
Yeah, okay. That's very interesting. Yeah. And so another thing that strikes me would be language, for example. So you obviously mentioned like geography, architecture, roads, but then also signage you mentioned a couple of times. Yeah. Do you know a lot of languages?
GeoGuessr, so it really does then like raise the question, what does it mean to know a language? Because the only languages I speak are English and German. Yeah. But I can identify basically every relevant language that comes up in GeoGuessr. For example, India recently got Google Street View, and I know how to identify based on the script all the major Indian languages. So it can be Marathi, it can be Kannada, it can be Bengali, any of it I can basically... Malayalam. Malayalam. There you go. That's all right. Nice.
Yeah, from Kerala.
Yeah, so Kerala's... I would love to go there. Yeah. I have a friend from Tamil Nadu, and we're planning a trip at some stage to go to southern India, so I want to go. But that example, for example, can be a language that can be difficult to identify. It looks fairly similar to Tamil. Yes. But basically, basically, I can not read the scripts, but I can identify what area they're from, because that's the most important thing from a GeoGuessr perspective. Yeah. Now, there are other scripts which I am learning or do know, for example, Russian, because Cyrillic appears in about 20 different countries, and knowing how to read it is incredibly high yield. It's something I learned how to do 3 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
That being said, there are other ones I have on the list for learning. Bengali, I want to learn soon. Thai, I'm learning this week.
You said in a week?
Yeah, well, I hope to be able to do it in a few days, I think. It is a difficult language to read out, but...
Wait, so when you say learn, how fluent are you hoping
0% fluent. I want to be able to look at a sign and identify what it says in English. So for place names.
Yeah, place names and stuff. Okay, so you're more...
I want to be able to transliterate, not translate.
There you go. Yeah. Is it so? But then you said Russian that you do know.
Also, Russian I don't know fluently.
But you can all the places
I can easily decipher what place names are meant to be in Latin script compared to Russian. Yeah.
Are there a lot of countries that have both English and their native language signs?
Yeah. So, for example, several places in India will tend to do bilingual signs. Yeah. I mean, but I think there are just certain countries where they don't do it. They're the exceptions, and they're the more important ones to know. For example, Thailand rarely has anything written in English for some reason.
Really?
Bangladesh, they'll have lots of stuff written in English, but the address will always be in Bengali. So it's about knowing which countries specifically are going to give you nothing for an English speaker, and then kind of filling the gap in the knowledge.
Yeah. So you need to know not just the countries, you need to know the towns, you need to know the roads, I'm guessing, in some place, like main highways and things like that.
Yes, there are certain countries where knowing main highways is mandatory knowledge. For example, Kazakhstan. You got to know all the main highways in Kazakhstan.
Wow.
Other countries, not so important. For example, France, there are just so many main highways.
Yeah.
It's so well connected as a country, and there's so much coverage that knowing highways is not essential by any means.
When you're playing the game and a location does pop up, what's the most difficult scene to...
Definitely the rural stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That's the if it's urban, I'm almost never going to go the wrong country.
Yeah. But wait, so you said that you were an expert in Australia, though, and you said this rural stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, most of Australia is a desert.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish anything inside of Australia? So
here's the thing. I'm simultaneously a very strong player at rural, but rural rounds will always be the hardest.
Yeah.
Because it's just you're right. Like, how do you distinguish it? It can be... Some of the stuff is very cheeky. The methods to... For example...
Are there any trade secrets you can't give away?
Oh, definitely. There are definitely ones I can't say on here. But that being said, like most stuff I can say.
Yeah.
For example, in the outback in Queensland, they mostly did it in a white Google car. And you can just see a hint of white smudge at the bottom. Whereas in Northern Territory, it's mostly the black Google car.
Yes, and I'm guessing they don't redo those rural areas as often as they do urban
Yeah, that's right. Well, it hadn't been done since like 2015. And then in 2023, they're just like, yep, we're sending the cars. And they did the whole of the outback.
Wow, really? Yeah. Amazing. And so you mentioned Google a lot. Is Google actually collaborating with GeoGuessr here? Like,
I'm sure they have some communication with one another, but at the end of the day, the size difference, I think, really means that GeoGuessr can't really get much done with Google. So, yeah, but I mean, I think GeoGuessr, like, it's part of their mission to eventually start doing their own coverage in some respect. I'm not really sure how that would work out. It's something I'm really curious to see if they do end up doing. But no, I don't think Google really has too much. I hope one day when GeoGuessr gets bigger, they do take more of an interest. I mean, I'm friends with a few Google employees who kind of take an interest in the game, but it's quite rare. Yeah, and they're not really the guys who would actually influence the Street View portion of Google. They just like the game.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned about GeoGuessr getting bigger.
Yeah.
Do you see that it's something that's growing, as in like the game? Do you think more people are getting into it now as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to. I think generally speaking, the way my YouTube channel is doing is a good reflection of how the game is doing, and views have been up recently. So I do get the feeling that GeoGuessr is in a very healthy spot. It's bigger than it was. It's 10 times bigger than it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to say how much more popular it is now than 2 years ago. Because COVID kind of brought a big boom for GeoGuessr. Yeah, I would say it is the most popular it's ever been right now. Asterisk, because like culturally maybe it was more relevant in 2022, whereas as a game it's more popular now.
Right. Okay. And so you mentioned a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
How did that begin? I mean, so 2019, last time we heard from you, you were watching YouTube channels and you mentioned gaming and like playing the game.
Yeah.
But when did you start streaming and making videos and things?
So here's how it happened. I bought my GeoGuessr subscription in late 2020. Late 2020.
This is not your ex-girlfriend's. You actually ended up buying.
No. I still play on that account. Actually, yeah. So a lot of emails were going to her.
There you go.
But anyway, so late 2020, I end up. Do I have the timeline right? Yeah. Late 2020, I end up getting the subscription, playing on her account a lot. End up getting, I thought, pretty good. I mean, I was able to most times identify the country by the time 2021 rolled around, and it was in late January that I created the channel and made the first video, and it did nothing, basically. I mean, immediately they would at least get more than 20 views, but it was a very small channel to begin with, as many are, of course. It's rare that you blow up off your first videos.
Yes, of course.
I did not really understand how to title a video, and let alone, especially how to thumbnail a video and how to pace a video, or how to narrate. Like, all this stuff just like came with time, for sure. But the first year on YouTube was very slow. I ended up gaining about.
What was your when you started YouTube? What was your goal?
Good point. I always wanted to do a YouTube channel. And really, like, my life, I was just kind of waiting for an opportunity where I had a reason to start one. Because, when I was in high school, I'd walk to the bus and I would like make up an intro or something. I would actually be thinking about what I would do if I had a channel. You know? I'd be talking to myself and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I always thought it'd be cool. Now, that being said, in high school, a lot of my friends did try YouTube, and I never did.
Yes.
I was like...
There was definitely that period of time when everyone was like,
exactly.
Let's make millions of dollars.
But I guess I was self-aware enough. I was like, if I ever try, it's got to be later. Like, I'm just not that guy yet, Like, no one wants to listen to a little kid squeak on about Minecraft or whatever I was playing at the time. And so I realized when I started to get good at GeoGuessr, what I thought was good.
Yeah.
And right now, I look back on it, I was like, no, I was not good.
Yeah. Right.
But at the time, no one was really good, or very few were.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I realized, hey, this is actually a game where I could... It's sufficiently entertaining for someone to watch how good I've gotten. And at the same time, it requires like no editing, because there are other games I would play and I'll be like, yeah, if I wanted to put this together into a really entertaining video, it would take a lot of cutting and stitching and stuff like that. Whereas GeoGuessr just kind of speaks for itself. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's just one of those games where Let's Play kind of just pure gameplay carries itself, and the interest carries itself rather than leaning on any special editing, which of course I do now as well. But
I guess the main thing is being able to think out loud and just like let people hear your thoughts.
Absolutely, right? that is the main thing. And I was very happy to just release videos that weren't going the extra mile for the first year of the channel. So the first year of the channel, basically little to no editing, which is probably good because I didn't really understand much about editing anyway. And, little effort on the thumbnails, didn't really look up how to improve them or anything like that. Basically just like trial and error until they improved a bit. Was making them on paint.exe initially, my thumbnails and such. Yeah, it was really it was a low quality operation without a doubt, but I realized, and I'm so glad I just started. I made a promise to my auntie at a Christmas party. I said, by the time you get next in Adelaide, I will have made at least some videos. Yeah. And I stuck to the promise. It was a month later. I was like, wait, I gotta come good on that promise. So I sat down, 40-degree day, fan blaring, audio's horrible, couldn't even bear to look into the camera. But it was just really good. Like it was just something I immediately enjoyed, and that kept me going for the next year, even though there was no money involved or no clout involved particularly. It was just fun.
Wow. And then what happened? Like what was the difference? Like what made you said obviously you were just doing it for fun for a year. Yeah. No editing, anything like that. What made you want to take it seriously essentially? Because obviously you at this time you said you were at uni as well. Yeah. Obviously, so what did you think your life was going to look like before GeoGuessr? Like,
right.
This isn't always, I'm going to be a pro gamer.
No, certainly not. So actually, pro gamer was never on my... YouTuber was somewhat on my radar. Pro gamer, never. Yeah. And it's actually crazy that I'm doing that now. That's actually like really strange to me. But so a few things came together to make me take YouTube more seriously. The end of 2021 rolled around. I graduated, or I finished up my courses, and then the next year started, and I was like, what do I exactly do now? I was applying to some places like museums or stuff that is history related and such, and nothing really gained traction. I was like, well, I've got 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's not nothing. Let me just So I started uploading every single day, and the quality improved, the video concept significantly improved, and everything was chugging along quite nicely. And then I broke up with that girlfriend, and that, I just found like one of the best ways to deal with it was just make lots of videos. And so, and at that stage, I happened to get a really like impressive run that kind of got popular on Reddit. Not very popular, but a couple of hundred upvotes, and it funneled a bunch of new people into the channel. And I was like, yeah, something good happened. Let me just like focus on this and really let me just try YouTube. And it was not the idea that this would become a job, but I don't know, my family was like, yeah, it's cool, just try that for a bit. Like, you don't have to do anything, I didn't have to take a gap year between uni, so all of a sudden, after a few months of gaining traction on YouTube, it was like, well, this is, I guess, the YouTube gap year, where I do a bit of traveling halfway through. And so this was 2022 now. GeoGuessr starts to get really popular around halfway through the year, because Rainbolt, who some of the listeners to this might know, started to get really popular for his like 0.1 second guesses on TikTok, and he started to get a lot of views. Now, he was actually someone who was watching me before we like met each other and stuff. So I guess it was really good that there was instant respect, even though he'd surpassed me by 30 times in terms of viewership. Like, he was originally a viewer of mine. So like we were always like doing stuff together, and we've always been friends, and I would appear on some of his TikToks at that stage as well, and and so, but that like, the rising tide helped my channel to grow quite a lot at that stage. And then I also did a collaboration with Dream, the Minecraft YouTuber. He was like, at that stage, probably the most most watched gaming YouTuber on YouTube.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
When was this?
In mid 2022.
Yeah, right.
So it didn't end up being a huge video. I think to date it is my most viewed video. It has about 400k views.
Yeah, wow.
But he like that collab again brought a bunch of new viewers, and I just felt great about it, because he just became.
Yeah.
He got interested in GeoGuessr, and I was like kind of filling the niche of the pro scene, which he wanted to watch.
Geographically too as well. Like in Australia, you're probably not from a game point of view, from a YouTube point of view, you're probably the biggest, right? In Australia?
Out of GeoGuessr?
Yeah, as in like YouTubers that do GeoGuessr.
Yeah, well, definitely. There's no one else from Australia who's really going for it on GeoGuessr YouTube, I would say. It's already a small scene. I mean, the two biggest guys are American and British. And then outside of and then there's another American guy and a guy in Latvia.
Yeah.
And outside of that, there's no one who really has 10,000 subscribers. So,
yeah.
It's a very much
wow.
What's it called? Pareto distribution or what? It's very much top heavy.
Yeah.
In terms of who actually is pulling views and that kind of thing in terms of GeoGuessr.
Yeah, right. And then so you obviously kept growing. A bunch of these collabs brought a bunch of people in as well.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you started making money at some point. And so do you still work anywhere now, or is this kind of what you do full time?
Yeah, so I said 2022 was kind of the gap year. I did a big Europe trip for 2 months in that year.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I was like, okay, what's the play? So I actually went for a graduate course or a graduate program with the government, and I ended up working the whole year of 2023 for the public service in kind of a national Centrelink team, including a stint in Sydney for 10 weeks as well.
Yeah, wow.
And that was great. At the start of this year, I decided to quit because YouTube was going nicely, and there were a bunch of tournament and opportunities happening over in Sweden where I'm actually casting and helping out with the tournaments that I'm not playing in.
Yes.
And it was just too much. It was just too much to stay. At the point I quit 2 months ago, I was at 77,000 subscribers. I've already passed 100k now.
Yeah, wow.
So it's been really just super solid growth since I quit, and it's definitely paying off.
Yeah, amazing. That sounds amazing, and I'm so happy for all that success that you had.
Thank you.
Where do you kind of see yourself in I don't know, the world is changing so quickly on yours. I can't even say 10 years. Even just 1 year from now, what would a realistic, happy expectation for you to be?
Ideally, I'll still be doing YouTube in a year. I could not say for 10 years. I don't necessarily think I want to be making YouTube videos in 10 years.
Yeah, right, okay.
I feel like that's kind of common on YouTube. A lot of people don't really see that as their career in 10 years, but in 5 years, maybe, you know? So, I don't know. I don't really know where I see my life going in that sense. I'm really playing it kind of month by month at the moment.
Yeah.
Also kind of considering a move to Europe as a possibility because...
Move to Europe, wow.
Yeah, because streaming is not convenient from Australia. We basically have the worst time zone for streaming to Europeans and by extension Americans, because there's that golden time where it's the American afternoon and it's the European evening.
Yeah.
And you get all the viewers, and that's 3 or 4 a.m. in Adelaide.
Really? So. Yeah. I mean, I watch F1, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know the pain there. Yeah. Wow. Do you know where you would go in Europe?
Probably Germany, as I said. I
speak German.
I did exchange there back in high school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have my exchange partner is one of my very best friends.
Yeah.
And then I also have GeoGuessr friends aplenty. There's lots of German geoguessing going on.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Have you done German episodes?
I have actually done one video on my channel in German.
Yeah.
With my good friend Leon, who's from Dusseldorf. And I've said I'll do more, but at the moment, the emphasis is so heavily on training.
Yeah.
I said to Leon, he was came to me the other day. He's like, we got it. That was 2 years ago. We did that video. He's like, we got to do another German episode. And I said yes, I really want to. Not right now, though.
Yeah. So right now, how often are you posting on YouTube?
So I actually have 4 channels at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the main channel receives a video once every 2 days or so.
Yeah.
The second channel probably about the same.
Yeah.
And then there's a daily vlog I do just to keep people up to date with what my training's looking like, because I guess It's more of an accountability thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I want to stay on top of everything I need to learn before I head over. Because the tournament is like extremely tough competition. Right. Asia is like way too strong to receive the amount of players that it receives to the World Cup. It's like a very Eurocentric circuit where 10 players from Europe go, whereas only 5 from Asia and Oceania go.
Oh, wow, right.
And Australia is literally like a top 5 country in terms of GeoGuessr. Like we've got a very strong scene.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's such a hard field to get out of. The other Aussies there's 2 guys from Perth.
Yeah.
And they're about as good as me. Probably a little better.
I see.
And like we're just going to be duking it out. It's going to be crazy. But yeah, that's what the third channel's kind of to promote, or like just to let people know how I'm going. And then the 4th channel is Japanese channel.
Yeah, right.
I don't speak Japanese, but I have a friend in Japan, and he subtitles everything, and it's mostly specific ones where I play on the Japan map. And it hasn't really taken off yet, but I hope I have plans for the future that it might, do something at some stage.
Sounds like you'll be going to move to Monaco soon for the tax benefits as well. It sounds like it's a perfect location for you.
Don't think I want to go to Monaco, to be honest. I prefer to be in Germany and pay taxes.
Yeah, fair enough. You're obviously gaining a lot of information and a lot of knowledge in this very niche area.
Yeah.
You're probably really good at geography at this point. Where outside of GeoGuessr do you think all of this knowledge could be useful? Like, have you thought about, like, is this just a hole you're digging in your brain that you're never going to open again in your life? Or
so it seems to me rather unlikely that knowing the colors of the different Malaysian bins will ever be useful to me in anything apart from being a professional GeoGuessr player. That being said, I mean, like, we were just talking off camera about, geolocation stuff is a real field and it is really useful to governments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, would I ever, like, see myself in a job in, like, an intelligence agency or something like that? I don't really know. But, I mean, I would not rule it out, but it's not really something I envision for myself in any certain way.
I can imagine, like, the government making like a drone that doesn't have GPS or something, and it sends you a live feed. That's what it is.
We landed in Brazil. No, but like I think there's definitely more. There's definitely on a wider perspective there are definitely uses for the knowledge I have. I think just a general knowledge of languages and cultures and places is really great. Like when I meet a Brazilian person, I'm like, okay, I know all the states. I know what they look like. I kind of have like a not a good idea, but the start of an idea of what their life is like over in Brazil.
That's so true. And also, like, I guess when you meet people, and they tell you where they're from, you like always know where that is, which is
for the most part,
right. And so, like, it's not like you're not going to make money off that, but it's just in life, it's just such a cool little thing to know.
It is. It really is. It helps make connections. Like, whenever I have an Uber driver, I'm always like, where are you from? Because like, I normally can at least have like some conversation about their country of origin.
Exactly.
It opens up a great conversation topic, especially in a country like Australia where people are from all around the place.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I really like that aspect. I guess also just like, knowing, like if I ever ended up like, in like foreign affairs or something like that, just like a good knowledge of the world is always helpful. Or even if I go do something academic, just knowing about different places in the world is something like, that's why I could recommend everyone try GeoGuessr, because, you start to understand more about people's lives, about how the world works and that kind of stuff.
The funny thing now is that if you do end up getting contacted by a CIA for this, no one would have any idea because you're not allowed to tell anyone. So maybe you're there right now.
I could already be working for them, but you don't know, nor do you need to know.
Exactly. Before we ask our final question, I was just curious as well. What about oceans? Is GeoGuessr only for land? I'm guessing. Like, how on earth would you tell an ocean apart?
Yeah. So I mean, you do get some coverage on boats. It does happen, especially even official coverage where they send the kind of backpack camera onto boats.
Wow.
Particular places you see a lot of boats. I mean, there's a couple of Tasmanian lakes that have them, but a lot around like Arctic stuff. So like Antarctica will have quite a bit. Arctic Circle will have quite a bit. Svalbard, which is like a Norwegian island up in the Arctic. For the most part, that's like you do get to. It's for oceans. It's more about looking out to the shore and seeing what you see on the shore, because the watercolor will only give you so much.
Yeah, right.
Like sure, Bermuda has very blue water, but you can't do a lot of other places.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not really going to help you that much.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering. All right, so we kind of have a tradition on this podcast. I don't know, you've probably never seen a full episode before.
I have not made it to the end of one yet. So
no, exactly. So you don't know what the question is, which is good. So we want to focus on the idea that like the internet's a big place and there's a lot of people in the world, but the people around you have a lot of impact. So the question's around, who do you think has been a really good role model and an impact to you locally? So in your life, in person, that you know, or just, it can be somewhere along, but like a direct relationship that you've kind of been able to learn a lot from so far. And yeah, like if you were to win an award, you know, who's the thank you to?
Yeah, I think if I was to win an award for GeoGuessr stuff, then probably my thank yous would, I mean, all of my, the vast majority of my GeoGuessr friends are from outside of Adelaide. There is like one other pro player who lives in Adelaide, and as well as a couple of other good players as well. And we get beers pretty regularly. You know, we're really good mates. And so, I mean, like, yeah, he's definitely a great support to me, Eddie. But I think, like, definitely the people who, like, made the biggest impact on me are my other YouTuber friends, people who gave me a chance when I was just starting out. You know, it's like there's always going to be, in any journey like mine, there's always going to be several times where someone, like, extends a branch to you. Wolf Trekker, he's another guy. He's a British YouTuber. He doesn't really make many videos now, but he was the first guy to give me a proper collab when he had about 10 times more subscribers than I did. And then there was like it was kind of like a bit of branch jumping. A number of people who did that kind of collaboration for me, who I'll definitely give thanks to. And then I guess like Rainbolt has been like a really good friend and a mentor at some stages. And I guess then in life, so if I was mentioning GeoGuessr, it would definitely be online people.
Yeah,
in life, my parents, I love them. They're supportive and also realistic with me about several aspects of it. So that's
really important with something that you're doing, which is not like a path that's been traveled very well. Very often. Having supportive parents is a huge thing because you spend a lot of time with them, and like having a positive attitude there instead of a negative one makes a huge difference. So.
It really is a blessing in that way. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else though. I mean, there's just
your ex-girlfriend for the subscription.
Shout outs to her. Yep. Definitely. That's gotta be a one. Without that changed my life. Yeah. Without a doubt, that changed my life. I'm pretty certain. I wouldn't say certain. I'm relatively sure that it would not have panned out the way it did if I didn't decide to make that her birthday present.
Wow.
In 2020. Yeah, in 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout outs to her.
Amazing how things work out.
And I mean, she had the password the whole time, and she never deleted my account as well. So that's also nice. That's also a nice thing. Had the courtesy not to do that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that would be like the main people if I was like giving a thank you speech. Yeah,
that's really nice to hear.
My close GeoGuessr friends, I guess. Big shout outs to Kodiak and Lenley. These are my two German GeoGuessr friends, my two first GeoGuessr friends.
Oh wow!
And they've been like really great people to just like chat to. If anything's on my mind, if anything's been going wrong, I often have a conversation to them. And Kodiak's also helping me a lot in the preparation for this tournament coming up. So yeah, but there's so many people.
Of course there would be, yeah. But no, thank you. I think that's really good. I think it's nice that you're so down to earth, I think.
Thank you.
You do have a big presence online, and you mentioned about giving that olive branch across, and I guess in a lot of ways that's what you're doing here as well. So huge thanks for actually coming on. We are really excited to push this out and let your audience see a bit of the background of like, who are you? A long video is always nice to hear you speak, and I think there'll be a lot of value there. So a huge thanks to you again, Oscar.
Definitely, thank you.